Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are joining us today for the fourth week's webinar. Thank you very much for making the time to be here with us today. During the session, we will have a Q&A section at the end, and so we request you to have your questions under the Q&A section, and we will get to them during the session and towards the end as well. Today we are joined by a guest speaker who is going to take us through securing online learning platforms. And our guest speaker is Maud Ajele Ashong Elliott, who is a lecturer in IT studies at the University of Professional Studies in Accra. Her research interest relates to the role of women in technology and digital transformation. She is actively involved in STEM initiatives across Ghana to encourage young women at the high school level to pursue STEM courses at tertiary institutions. She also advocates for safe internet and encryption by serving as the Vice President of Internet Society Ghana chapter, where she teaches women how to monitor and protect their children's online activities. She has also taught programming in Scratch and Python to young children to encourage more participation in STEM programs. During COVID-19, she was selected and trained as a trainer of Moodle so that higher education continues during pandemics by the Association of Africa Universities and has been training many universities to date. She's an IBM trained educator in mobile development and cloud development. Maud has a strong interest in gender issues, as well as monitoring and nurturing children online. She is an ICANN 78 and ICANN 80 fellow and a member of Women in Cybersecurity. Clearly from her bio, she is a very impressive woman in cybersecurity, so you should listen in very attentively. Over to you, Maud.
Hi, Patricia. Good evening from Ghana, Accra, Ghana. It's 4 p.m., 4:05 from my end, and I welcome all of you. I've just been looking at the participants and where they are coming from, and it's awesome. Okay, so we can start our lesson today. So Maud, you can all call me Maud. A woman passionate about the internet, its security, its content, and making sure that it's usable for everybody, meaning access should be made available, especially in Africa. This evening, my mandate is for us to look at learning platforms. Through the few research and going through the lessons that you've already taken, we realized that most of you preferred being taught using Zoom. So that would what we're going to use for the demo. Okay. So I'm sure this program came about because of COVID-19. COVID-19 is a period where we all thought the unthinkable, things that we thought could never happen, and they happened, and then we all jumped on to it. I remember during that period, the universities were all in session, and most universities, especially in Africa, did not know what to do. And most of us decided to stay at home. But the rest of the world continued. So I guess it encouraged some of us to make sure that if the rest of the world is continuing with the educational, calendar, what are we doing? That's what sort of got me interested to learn more about what the others were doing. And then here we are. As a lecturer for the past 1.5 decades, we realize that we are used to the classroom version of teaching, and now we've moved online. The online classes have come to stay. So it means that we are studying using these online platforms. If this has become the norm, then I guess we should be interested in making sure that they are secured. Our data should be secured. The lessons that we are learning, the content must be rich and must educate us, and the methods of teaching would also change. You realize that when you sit behind the computer for at least 30 minutes, if you do not have something that is extremely captivating, you might lose focus. And also when you have to look at ergonomics about our health, we should not sit for a long time. We should find other ways of making sure that the body still works, though we are still sitting behind our computers for knowledge acquisition. Now that we've moved on, we need to know exactly what these online learning platforms are. We know they are for learning, yes, but it's a very interesting environment where learning takes place with which tool? Technology. Okay, so that's how we define an online learning platform. It's an environment where learning takes place and is moderated by technology. And normally it's a portal or a web space, okay, where we have the resources, we have the lecturers, and we have the opportunity to meet and network and chat as I'm meeting you all for the first time. I think I saw a few Ghanaians. I identified one person I personally know, and I'm happy about it. So these online learning platforms are giving us the opportunity of connecting with a lot of people. I've seen so many countries present this evening. Okay. We have some existing online learning platforms. I know most of us know these, and we've been engaging in one or two. If we decide to, assuming I decided to create a poll for us to select at least two that we are really interested in, over time, I mean, from research, I know which two it may be. And we could even classify, let's say, the first four. Why are you using these particular online platforms? Which features are making you, it's allowing you to select those particular online platforms? And they are really important. These online platforms, at first, were just sites which had materials, learning materials, for people to register and then go there. Some were not very interactive. Some were just having the material. You go have some form of self-learning over time, and then you'll get your certification. But after COVID, most of these learning platforms became much more interactive. And whilst interactivity increases, you realize that others are also thinking about how do we break this kind of, fun activities where we are learning. I'm talking about the hackers. If that's the case, we need to be sure that the people who should join our classes are the real people who must join these classes. It's important that when you are setting up for a class, because I know this course is for teachers. If you are setting up for your lecture, if you are setting up for your class, you should be interested in securing your platform to make sure that the right people join your class. Okay, so that's why we are here this afternoon. And When we talk about cyber threats, normally on the online learning platforms, we normally deal with data breaches. We want to make sure that the right people are online. We want to make sure we don't have phishing attacks. I've looked at all the sessions you've had. Today, we are not discussing any of the cyber attacks. So I just mentioned them because I know you know them. No phishing attacks, no malwares, no denial of service attacks. We want to make sure that these things do not happen, because these are some of the few, we have a lot of vulnerabilities that we can deal with. But for online learning platforms, most of the time, people are not really going in there for major stuff, but normally it's for data breaches. See, in this class right now, look at the number of persons coming from different countries. If somebody wants to infiltrate and get in, we'll definitely get to know the people coming in. And of course, normally in class, because of interactivity, we expect our students to join in with their full name so that you get to know who is in. And if somebody, an outsider, infiltrates, you can copy all the names of the persons here, find them online, and start finding a way of getting to them. So normally it's all about data breaches most of the time, and also academic fraud. When the online system picked up, it's been there for a while, but when it picked up, especially after COVID-19, and you realize, I'm a lecturer, most students would want to pass their examination and yet do not want to put in their best. So when the online system came up, some will hire others and then make sure that those things are done for them. So there was this case that I want to talk about, that schools have become extremely vulnerable, especially now that we are connected online. I'm telling you, now every person has at least 2 devices. At least. So that's the minimum. Because normally we have a laptop, we have a mobile device. So that's the minimum. So assuming the minimum number of persons connected to the school network. So assuming a school of 1,000 students would have to connect 2,000 devices. We need to generate 2,000 IPs. So think through about that. And then, do you think school resources have enough funds to stay robust and protect their network? These are all questions. As teachers, we know that these kind of resources are not available to schools. If that's the case, we as individuals must also protect the people we are dealing with. Most attacks comes through the individual. We'll discuss that. And then the system itself. So talking about this case, schools are vulnerable, we know that. And then we said the K-12 Security Information Exchange disclosed that 1,619 cyber attacks on schools happened between 2016 and 2022. See the number of cyber attacks. And yet, 80% of school IT professionals are hit by ransomware attacks last year. So you realize that the penetration even into the school system passes through the individuals. And then the university or the secondary school or the school systems do not have the capacity to handle these things. That is why we are learning this day that as teachers, whilst we are setting up our classes, let's just go beyond just the normal ways of setting up our classes, especially in Zoom, and then let our students join. We pay extra attention. We set it up in a way that, one, we interact with the right people. We set it up in a way that people are not, unauthorized access should occur. We should set it up in a way that we can have some interactivity so that we get to know that these are the students that we have and they are the people who are in your classes. So we need to make sure we defend our computers, our networks, our electronic systems, and digital data from unauthorized access and malicious attacks, and then all other security mechanisms. Some security features on online learning platforms. So you could say password. I've seen passwords in all your slides, all your videos. And I know you discussed password rules, you discussed, it's getting to a point where we are forgetting our own passwords. So I think I could recommend this other way of getting your passwords. Sometimes you could have a phrase that means the world to you. A phrase that means the world to you. And that phrase is, it's a phrase, it's a sentence. And then you pick either the first letters of those sentences, add some numbers and some characters. You could pick the last, letters of that phrase, add some numbers, some characters. So you realize it's a phrase. You could even use the whole phrase. So there are ways, so that's at least ways of helping you to remember your passwords in an easy manner, and yet they are robust and not easily broken. Encryption is one other thing. This morning I had to speak at a conference where we had to talk about encryption in Africa, because now everybody is having a digital device. As I said, 2 different devices per person. And the question is, as the world, as Africa, do we have policies that have been put in place as standard so that we can use it to protect ourselves? Do the countries have data protection acts? Do they have cyber security authorities to make sure to find a way of sanitizing the system? So these were all questions we looked at. So it's important to make sure that whilst you're sharing notes, everything that we have some form of end-to-end encryption to protect the data that is going out. The sign-in authentication, realize that now is a lot of 2-factor authentication. It could be more, just to make sure that the right people are signing in. And then some form of security audit would also help. So this would definitely ensure the integrity and the availability of educational resources that we have, especially on the online platform that is going to use. Okay, so I guess we can now at least go through Zoom. And the idea is to let us go through it in a way that when you are setting it up for your class, you just don't set up date, time, and that is it. Let's go through in much more a painstaking way to protect our students and ourselves. So this is my Zoom. This is me. I first logging in. I'm using the WACREN platform. That's the West and Central African Regional Educational Network. Those of us in West and Central Africa, we have this platform that is helping, so that we have access to Zoom, which can take up to 500 students at a time for lectures or for other meetings. So we realized that here we have the opportunity to schedule meetings and even handle some form of webinar. So to schedule a meeting, definitely before I got to this point, I had to log in. I did that. So now you just have to schedule a meeting. I hope you can all see it. So assuming this is, let's just say it's called cyber. Cyber for teacher. If you decide this should happen around this time, today's date, the time that you want, the number of hours, this is very common with us. The time, it's important, especially if you are organizing an international event. You should, the time zone, just don't assume. You need to pay attention and choose the right time zone. I'm with the GMT, the UTC +0. Okay, you can decide to have a recurring meeting for a weekly, for daily. You can see that it could be daily, it could be weekly, it could be monthly. All these things could be set up. You could also decide that depending on the kind of meeting or kind of class you want to have. I mean, generally the number of students I personally take care of is over 1,200. I would not know them, but I need to push and have a way of getting to know them. So sometimes I set them up. Normally they are in groups. So these group members, I set them up using their university email addresses or official email addresses and set them up. So they will be the attendees. They are the only ones that the system would accept to be able to log on into Zoom for you to meet them. So you see, you are making sure that the right people or the people that you need to meet are those who can join, not just anybody. You can also decide that before people join into the meeting, they must register. And that is also important. Now, I realize most of my meetings, I can and all that, you need to register. And it's important. The organizer, it helps the organizer, you, the teacher, to keep track of the students who have registered. And also it helps you that normally it helps with pre-registration. And then assuming an hour to your class, it's very easy for you to send them a reminder. Why? Because you've already, sort of gathered some form of data which you're going to use to send a reminder. And it makes it even easier because the reminder is going to the specific people who registered for the program. Okay. Also, if you do not want them to register, you could decide that we're going to use a passcode. We're going to use a passcode for what they are doing. Okay, so before you join in the meeting, not just only the link, but you also have a passcode, which you will use, specific passcode, which you use to also do that. Others also go beyond and then decide that they're going to activate the waiting room. The waiting room is normally also it depends on the number of people or the specific people you're expecting to join the meeting. It's also a second way of, seeing the people that are coming in. Because definitely the administrator will know the people are supposed to attend the class, the specific people. So in the waiting room, you could admit, so you have the opportunity to admit the people you want in the meeting. And it's also another way of securing your platform, your class. So that is important. Others will also want to activate authentication. Okay, sometimes you need to prove that it's you. Therefore, you need to sign into Zoom with your email address and all that, and then you are given access. All these are ways that are being used to make sure that the right people are joining the system. Okay, and then you decide whether you want people to join within their videos. And technically, because of network issues, we normally put them off so that it will be free for everybody to join easily. There are other options as well so this portion is important. Always mute your participants upon entry. Definitely there will be some students who will join later. We do not want them to disrupt the class, so mute it. So when you are setting these things up, take time, go through it, decide what you want to do before even setting the meeting or getting them a link to join. You can decide to have pre-assigned breakout rooms. I encourage you to have breakout rooms for your class. I encourage. Reason being that is a way of breaking the normal flow of teaching. That is one. Two, is a way of getting them into groups, and you, the facilitator, you get the opportunity to move from one breakout room to the other, to interact with the people, assuming they are 5. When you join, you get to, of course, that tells you that before you get to class, you need to have some interesting discussion topics, which you give to them for them to discuss, and then later on, come back to the main platform and have a discussion, a way of encouraging them to also participate. Okay, so though we are making the teaching interesting, our interest this evening is a security part. We want to make sure the right people are in the classroom. I've realized that most of the time when we discuss security, most people think about the system, the technology. No, that's not it. Security deals with the people, the process, and the technology. We need to make sure the right people are there. We want to make sure that the process is seamless and not penetrable or unauthorized access, and then the technology be robust and resilient. So that is what we should take note of. So making sure that whilst teaching is okay, the security of the people are all right. So make sure you mute your participants upon entry. Think through your class before, so you can have pre-assigned break rooms, have your topics, do the assignments. You can do pre, or you can even do it while in class. That's also acceptable. And then you should decide where you are saving your work. Legally, you should let your participants agree to recording, and then where you're going to save the data is also about security. So you just want to make sure that if it's a place in the cloud, not just any cloud, a secure site. If it's on your computer, your local computer, it's a place you feel it's safe, it's important. You see, whilst we are sharing knowledge, I'm doing this right now, and it's going all over Africa and all over the world. But we have to be sure, where is this data going to? would it be, changed? What will happen to it? All these things are things we think about when we are even setting these things up. So you should pre-think about all these things. Protect your data, protect your notes, protect your students, and make sure it's the right people who are there for you, for your class. So I think I would want to pause here. I want my class to be extremely interactive. I want people to bring ideas. When we say class is not about the facilitator coming up. I expect a lot of people also coming on board and bringing and teaching us new things. Okay, so I'm open to all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Maud, for that presentation. Turn my video back on. We have few questions, but I encourage participants to add more questions so that we can pick Maud's brain during this session. So if you have any questions around securing online platforms, please add them to the Q&A and we'll be able to get to them. So I think we can begin with the first one. So the first question is, e-learning platform systems provide a lot of risks in there. Have some security risks. Which is the best planning platform among all that you've displayed on your screen, and why? I think this is from your presentation where you had a list of various online learning platforms. So maybe you can talk a little bit about their different security features and how you go about selecting the online learning platform that is suitable for you. Because I think there's a lot of online learning platforms that are available. Yes, so I think you can discuss that a little bit more.
Okay. Great. The first thing you must look at is the content. Because you realize that every learning platform, has some form of content, depending on what you want to study. So content is the first thing that distinguishes one learning platform from the other. Okay. Whilst doing that, assuming we decide to choose Coursera. Coursera has a lot of courses. Business, IT, I've done a lot of courses on Coursera, on a lot of foundational courses on Coursera, a lot of foundational courses on Udemy, a lot of foundational courses on LinkedIn Learning. You get it. So you realize that it's about what you want. What you want. That is the first thing. You need to know what you want before you go in there and then find out which of them is best for me. 2, the kind of certification that they give. I must tell you the truth, they are not all the same. They are not all the same. We place value on some more than others. That I'm not going to discuss that. But we place value on, we have universities all over the world, but definitely throughout, even when you said you attended a specific university, the whole world will like, okay, if you had training here, then you might be good. That is the idea I'm bringing on board right now. So that's what happens. First, get to know what you want, and then see what they also bring on board. When you decide that, then that is where you start choosing. That is where you start choosing. I have used Moodle. Moodle is an educational learning platform. We use one which has been customized. Moodle, for instance, has been customized by a lot of higher education institutions to help them manage, their learning process. Just to manage their learning process. Because there they can put the courses that they are teaching, all their faculties are rolled onto it. the kind of classes or courses that they're going to take within the term or semester are rolled onto it. The students are rolled onto it. I mean, classes, exercises, assignments. The idea is that they want to look at their progress over time. So you see, this is what Moodle does. And a lot of higher education institutions have customized it to suit their learning needs, their teaching and learning needs. What does Google Classroom? It's a platform also. Well, it's a classroom for teaching, for learning. So you realize that it depends on what you want. You cannot really say that, oh, Maud should tell you which is the best this evening. No, I'm not going to do that. You need to also do your homework to find out which is the most applicable. But one thing I have seen is that the easier the accessibility. When you talk of access, most of us here, when you ask me to choose which of the platform I will use to conduct my meeting, conduct my lecture, I will choose Zoom any day. Why? We just click and then we are on. And then you don't need so much bandwidth for it to run. So are you getting where we are going? You don't need so much bandwidth. And its popularity, its accessibility throughout the world. For you to log on to some of these platforms, it will take so much time. It will just roll and roll over time before you log on. And then the interface also is not too interactive and it's not too nice. Zoom is just there. What do we want to see? See the lecture space, see our colleagues. We can decide to put our videos off. A lot of flexibility. And especially now that they are putting, that Zoom is telling us, I think by 2nd May, if you do not upgrade to a particular version, now when you join from the browser section, because they are doing that to make sure that they get to sort of know the people who are joining in meetings. Okay, so note that. So the learning platform, be interested in one. Of course, popularity means that it has to be accessible to people, to its security, okay, its flexibility, the interface and everything, the content. What are we really using it for? What exactly do you want to learn? That will help you to choose the right learning platform to use. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, I think you have answered it really well by just looking at different factors that go into selecting different online learning platforms. Yes. There was another question about how can you secure yourself if you joined a class and you notice that it's not secure? Do you leave or something else?
How do you know the class is not secure? I need an answer to that. How do you know it's not secure? Is it that the people who are in the class are not the people who are supposed to be in the meeting, or you joined the wrong class? You see? So this is what it is. Here we are training ourselves. These are teachers, okay? What we want you to go out there to teach others is that before that class even starts, you take your time to secure your class. That's it. Take your time. Make sure that the link is going to the right person. And then, before the person even joins, we have ways of having some form of data about the person. And then that also confirms that this is the person we are dealing with. So throughout this session, you realize that upon all these, you also have the opportunity of visually seeing your students, getting to know who is where and who is not. That is why we encourage these breakout rooms, so that you find a way of knowing them for security reasons and a way of also pushing them to contribute to the discussion at hand, so that at least you realize that no matter what, at least they took something home in terms of the kind of knowledge you want them to acquire.
right, thank you, Maud, for that answer. There's another question around how can an individual use any of these platforms apart from the institutionalized ones? And I think Maud already kind of covered how to select the online learning platforms that suit your needs, in that apart from the ones that you're using within your learning institutions, you can also interact with these platforms to learn and to upskill yourself in your professional development. And so these platforms are not only just for teaching, they're also for learning. We can also learn a lot from these different platforms. For example, you are now taking this course through Mookit, which is an online learning platform that you're using to learn more about cybersecurity. And so my advice, or rather my recommendation, is to look at what different learning platforms offer, and then to see what you may benefit from them. So for example, I know, for example, LinkedIn Learning has a lot of content around IT, and that can be something, if you're interested to learn about that is something you can enroll to learn through the platform. So they're not platforms just for teaching, there are also platforms that you can use to learn from as well, other than the ones that your learning institutions use for day-to-day learning operations. Right, there's another question around, are all these security features you talk about appear on the free or trial versions of online learning platforms?
I have been using this for a while, but I think, truthfully, Zoom is improving on their security things. So they want most people to be secured online, and are making these features available. And please make sure you update your Zoom, else by 2nd May. 2nd May is like a week. Yes, so in a week's time, else you'll be sort of locked out in a way, and it will be very difficult for you to join Zoom meetings. So do well to update. And you see, the update is a way of making sure that all these security patches, you are sort of protected. Get these patches, and then you get the form of security that you have.
Thank you, Maud. Another question is, in inviting students to register for a learning platform, must you enter them individually, or can you also upload them from a pre-stored location? I think you're best placed to answer this question because you deal with online classes all the time. So how do you usually upload, how do you usually register students for your classes?
It depends. Normally, if it's the university, will just upload the list. Okay, but as an individual, you generally will have their email addresses. Look and upload them in, send them an email, and then they find ways of selecting the right programs, the right classes, the right times that they would want these classes to be held. One thing I've seen about online learning is it's very flexible. And we normally have pre-recorded versions, and then have a time where you have some interaction with the facilitator. Okay, so pre-recorded versions, you listen your own time, if it's after work or early in the morning. Recently, I tried to do this paper to test when students generally, those who are doing distance learning courses would generally, log on. And most of them said it's so difficult to do that after work. So they would rather wake up an hour before their normal, time of getting out of bed, and then log on and then just play and listen, and it's become easier. So when you say it that way, it means that if it has to be an hour. So this is what I did. I realized that, okay, If it's in the morning, you're also in a hurry. So why don't you, would I to break these sessions into just an hour modules? See, 1 hour would be very easy for them to listen to, and then, pick something before they start juggling with their day-to-day activities. And it's worked. So when I did that, I realized their performance increased. And then I have a day in the week where I'm online. So just come, any question, anything you do not understand, I make time, I answer you. So normally you create a platform such that, yes, they have their details there, but you still give them the opportunity to fill out the things properly, because their names might not be, you get it. The idea is to have the right data. And then, of course, legally, you want to push to them that if you don't put in the right data, it's up to you. Okay.
So there's another question around artificial intelligence, and I was hoping one of our facilitators could take this question. So the question is, please tell me a little bit more about Otter AI. And just from, I've not personally used it, but just from research, I know that it's a note-taking AI that you can use in different meetings. And so I think maybe we can just briefly talk a little bit about incorporating AI and the risks of AI in online learning, and how people can be aware of the different risks that they may face while they're using AI.
Yes. So with, I think they call it Otter AI, it takes notes. I use it personally, but not for classes, for normal meetings. The reason is, when it's a lengthy meeting, what Otter does is it sort of summarizes it. But over time, this is what I realized. The kind of summary it will do, or it will make, might not be the exact discussion that we had. So that tells you that when you use Otter in your classes and thinking that it will take the notes and you come back and then you read it, you would have missed some important lessons, and would have sometimes it will just summarize it in a way that is not what we were talking about. So that is the risk. So normally that's what it does. It gives summary. Every topic, it sort of gives you a topic about it, and then gives a summary of what was discussed. It's nice, but the content over time, I've realized, is not what was discussed during meetings. So I would not really encourage that you use that for your classes. Be present as much as you can, and listen to full recordings as much as you can. And do not dwell on Otter AI. I mean, if it's just for short meetings and all that, even that over time, I've seen that they do not give the real content that was discussed during the meetings. So these are the pros and cons of it. Okay.
Thank you very much, Maud, for that answer. So at the end of the day, you have to be very cognizant about different risks for any emerging technologies that you choose to use in your online classes as well. There's another question on how can I secure my data when I'm not using Wi-Fi on my laptop? And I think I can take this question. So around data security, I think this is a lot of the things that you learned during week 3, and there are various ways in which you can protect the data on your devices, and this can be through various device security mechanisms, such as encrypting your hard drive so that any person without the decryption key cannot access your information. We also covered this in, I believe it's week 3, where you learned a little bit more about encryption and how it protects your data from from unauthorized access. Another thing would be protecting your laptop with biometrics or using passwords as well, so that the data stored within the laptop is kept secure. And then you can also keep your laptop updated to make sure that all the platforms and all the applications you're using are up to date. And by up to date, we mean that in different updates, there are usually security features that are updated to that application, and so it protects you from any existing weaknesses within the application. And so every time you see a security update, please make sure to apply that security update, because it will protect you against different cyber threats. And all the other security measures that you learned about protecting different cyber threats that you learned during week 2 all also go towards protecting your data that is stored within your devices. So follow those protection measures and you'll be able to keep your data secure. There's another question around how can you protect a document that is shared using online learning, where to open that document as a real student, and especially a real student may open that document using his or her personal password set by the facilitator. This is something we did during week 1, that is password protecting documents. So for whoever asked this question, that is something we covered in week 1 under the CIA triad. You can look at the material shared there. And also we did it as a practical activity under activity week 1A. So please check that as well, and you will see some of the steps you can use to password protect different documents. There is another question around which platform provides a room for assessment, and I think I can briefly just take this because Maud had shared already about different learning management systems, different online learning platforms, and I believe most online learning management systems offer a way of assessing your students. So be it quizzes or even submission of graded papers, they provide a way to assess students on the different course content that you have taught them. And so again, this goes back to the research of what you need. So for example, if you need more the ability to grade papers, you can look at learning management systems that focus on that and that provide really good service when it comes to that particular type of assessment. Or if you need system graded questions, for example, the way we are doing at using Mockit, where we're able to give you quizzes and you answer the quizzes and it automatically tells you what you scored. That is also a feature that exists for a lot of online learning management systems. There is a question on encryption. Kindly expound more on encryption as a way of security. I think I can invite Malusi or Sylvia to take this question.
So this was, as you mentioned, covered in week 3. Encryption essentially is scrambling up data belonging to a device. It could be scrambling up a piece of document so that only the sender and the receiver can see what it actually is, because they have the key to decrypt the information. So when it comes to device encryption, such as encrypting your phone or your laptop, when you talk about device encryption, it sounds like a very difficult, big thing. But essentially what it is, it's setting up a password that you can use as the key for the encryption. So setting up a screen lock on your phone is encrypting your phone essentially on both Android and iPhones. So that's how it's set up. Setting up a password on if you have a MacBook or if you're using macOS, setting up a password on your macOS or MacBook is essentially encrypting your whole disk. However, when it comes to Windows, there's a bit of a difference. But if you have BitLocker enabled, or if you're using Windows 10, Pro version, if you set up a password and if you enable BitLocker, then you should have your entire disk encrypted. So with Windows, it's a bit of challenge, or something like a level of something you have to do extra. But essentially, encrypting usually is setting up passwords on your devices. So a screen lock, or with devices like laptops, setting up a password. So I hope that's clear.
Thank you, Malusi. I think we can take one last question, and after that, the rest of the questions will be answered on a document and shared with you together with the webinar recording. So one last question for Maud. Can you go back Can you go back to Zoom settings and change them? For example, if you did not select the option for muting all participants and their camera, can one do it during the meeting? I have attended chaotic meetings with participants' mics and videos disturbing, and always wonder why the host cannot silence them.
It can be done. It can be done. You know, when you are a host, you also have some security. When you go down there, there's a security shield there. It gives you, I'm sure the host could see it. There's a shield there that gives you the opportunity to even mute everyone. I mean, it gives you a lot of power to deal with the people online. So it can be done. It can be done.
Thank you for that, Maud. Yes, just to reiterate, just because you've already set up a meeting, does it mean that you cannot go back and add more security features that maybe you didn't know about or maybe forgot to enable? So that is something that you can do. And during sessions as well, as the host, you can even remove participants who are disturbing people. You can remove participants, you can mute them, or prevent people from sharing their screens and things like that. So those are things that are also available to you during your sessions as you teach using online learning platforms. So with that, we come to the end of our webinar today. We thank you very much for making the time to be here with us today and for participating, asking questions, and also participating in the chat. I've seen a lot of feedback through the chat, and we thank you for that. We are now at the 4th week, and we welcome you to participate during the final week, which will be week 5. Thank you very much, Maud, for joining us today and for the wonderful presentation and for answering all the questions the participants had, and to our facilitators as well for being here and answering some of the questions that we had today. Thank you very much, and may you have a wonderful rest of your day.